good news, because of course the study always looks back. We can't look into the future, but we analyze for 5 African countries: Kenya, Uganda, Burkina Faso, Senegal, and the Democratic Republic of Congo. We analyze how much money that is being earmarked as contributing to agriculture. Sorry, Susie, that's okay. So, in short, on average, we see that about 30% of European development aid that is going towards agriculture is managed by DG Impact, so by the international partnerships. And when analyzing what is the quality of the projects that DG Impact is supporting, we see that these projects that are being financed by them are largely supporting agroecology. So that is the good news. Although there is still room for improvement, of course, because we see that some of the projects that are being supported are very much beyond input substitutions. So a way to go for all the projects to really have a food systems approach and really contribute to all elements of food systems transformation according to the agroecology principles. But at least we think that DG Impact shows leadership and also really tries to support agroecology, and they do so. Mainly, the project that they are supporting is mainly research on agroecology. When we are looking at these different EU delegations, so in each of the countries there's also a delegation of the European Union present, who also has a budget to finance projects. And then we see that it is already a much more diffuse setting. The amount of programs that are really supporting agroecology at EU level depends very much on staff leadership, the national political will of the countries that they are working in, and on bilateral initiatives from the member states, from the European member states. So it is a bit of a diffuse picture that I'm showing here. And when we are trying to look into the future, the future is bleaker than the past, we are afraid. Because if we see that until 2023, for example, agroecology was still gaining ground in European policy and in European funding. We had the Green Deal, we had the Farm to Fork strategy, and there was a SARC document at the European level that was developed that gave guidance on how to promote agroecology, how to implement lacking of clear definitions, and there was also some blurry with other sustainable agriculture approaches. But anyways, what we now see is that there's a serious risk of incoherence under global gateway, because there is a new focus of the European Union to put all emphasis into the global gateway. So it is investment, it's a new paradigm within development cooperation. It's a much more transactional approach, putting EU into work, and a focus on leveraging private investments with public money. When that is translated, global gateway is not really focusing on agriculture, but there is also some budgets going to agriculture. Most of the money goes to the energy transition, which we were talking about in the previous session. But so when it comes to agriculture, the tendency is to invest in agri-food value chains oriented towards export crops, very capital-intensive models, and so we that's this new financing vehicle that is the global gateway comes to promoting development. There needs to be no attention now, for example, and for EU institutions, for the EU delegations, and also for the African countries that are receiving the funding. And at the level of the EU, we really think that it's extremely important to develop a consistent policy framework and develop also binding guidelines for agroecology with very clear red lines and also enforceable criteria. And we have to align Global Gateway and other funding so as to make sure that we stop the greenwashing that is currently going on. And on the second level, we really need to increase transparency and accountability, because just doing this study was extremely difficult to find the information on what Europe is financing when it comes to agriculture. And with this accountability and transparency, if this increases, then it will also enable Parliament to scrutinize the spending. And when it comes to the delegations itself, we see that they have a very important role to play, because they're sort of an intermediary between the global north and the country that they are operating in, and they can also interact much more easily directly with civil society organizations, something that they should do, but in very many cases are not doing enough. So we really need to open direct funding channels for local civil society organizations, and to make sure that the big intermediary organizations can help grassroots organizations to access this kind of funding, because we see that that is something that is really lacking at this moment. And the EUDs, when they, with the backup from Brussels offices, they can really play an important role in driving agroecology, because they can negotiate with local governments on the importance of agroecology. Lastly, the African governments, we see that there is already an increasing support for agroecology in Africa. More and more countries are developing an agroecological strategy or already have one in place. But very often it's a strategy amongst other strategies that go much more towards support for the conventional agriculture and agribusiness. So there we really pleased that they transformative agroecology in very much oriented local production.
1 second, please. I think there's an issue with the translation.
Okay.
Interpretation from French is interfering.
Yes, I received the information of the host and the interpretation, but I don't know who to attach, so give us 1 second. Maybe the English? Yes, please.
Le singulier. So, we should be back on.
Okay, can we continue?
Please.
Okay, yeah, I was just wrapping up. So we're really pleased for this support to transformative agroecology in value chains and reorient the focus of African governments on local ownership and local production for local consumption, so maybe to prioritize local ownership and systemic change and develop sustainable food systems instead of extractive and export-oriented value chains. And I will stop there for now. Thank you.
Cindy, thank you so much. That's really brilliant, and I think laid a very good foundation for this panel and this session this afternoon. So really looking at what is happening in the EU and the work that you've really done, and the basis from which we have to actually really have some concrete recommendations to be putting forward, and also to know as a society what the lay of the land is, what the horizon is, the frame that we are working for. So much funding nowadays is going through big multilateral agencies and is not coming down to farmers and to civil society organizations on the ground who desperately need it to fund the transition to agroecology in the face of climate crisis. So thank you so much for that presentation and that overview. And I think that there's some very key points that we need to come back to in the Q&A at the end. And now the two more focused presentations and input sessions, I think, firstly on seeds. I think Dr. Leopold is here with us now. And so as you're here, we will move towards you and then go back to the presentation on pesticides. So Dr. Leopold, thank you so much for joining us from Zimbabwe. And you're going to be speaking to us about the current threat to seed systems and to farmers' rights in Zimbabwe and also in Africa. So thank you for your time and input here. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Francis, for having me. Yes, I'm happy to join you from Marrakesh, and I'm joining you from the airport and west to South Africa. I hope I can be with you until we finish the discussion. I'm going to give a brief report on why in Zimbabwe we feel that COVID-91 and the related seed growth pose significant threats to farmer managed disease systems in Zimbabwe. I'm also a farmer, and my entire life as a smallholder farmer, I've never been to buy rice seed from the shops, from the big suppliers, you know. I've never also gone to shops to buy maize seed. Why? I always use the maize seed and the rice seed from hearing about COVID-91, there are quite a number of challenges that is associated with COVID-91, and we have concerns. And when we say we have concerns, I'm referring to the church at large. We have concerns over changing plant breeders' rights and laws that actually threatens our local farmers here in Zimbabwe. I also make reference to civil society organizations that have become aware of COVID-91, and also in terms of farmer groups and farmer associations, also the Rural Zimbabwe Association. They also expressed their concerns of COVID-91, and they highlighted its potential to impact negatively on farmers, especially women, as we have the majority of farmers in Zimbabwe women and children, and this really poses a big threat. And I want to just go in detail why we think, our seed saving, our seed exchange, our seed saving is actually threatened by COVID-91. We see with EU in an effort to sign the IPA. And for that, it means management of the Zimbabwe's land protection legislation, and that poses a threat on national food sovereignty to start with, because we have food that we have always produced as a country. Think of the small seed varieties that we grow, and these are actually adapted to climatic conditions that are found in Zimbabwe. In Zimbabwe, we have 5 ecological regions. Ecological region 1 and 2, they receive almost above normal rainfall. Whereas the ecological regions 3 and 5, these are dry areas which normally receive erratic rainfall, for ecological region 3, and for 4 and 5, even erratic rainfall. In such regions, you can't grow these national varieties that is actually advocating for. Small grains actually are tolerant to the climatic conditions in those ecological regions. The other threat, besides our food sovereignty, it is also the farmers' rights to sell, exchange traditional seeds. Our farmers have food for a very long time been selling seeds, and they even have what we call seed banks. Any type of seed, any traditional seed, you can't find it in these agribusiness shops. You have to grow communities and bring seed banks. Keeping seeds, and everyone wants to have seeds. You can buy them or you can exchange with other seeds. And that's how it is in Zimbabwe. And with the COVID-91 and its associated laws and rules, it means farmers will not be able to sell or exchange such traditional seeds. What it simply means is privatization of seeds allows companies to privatize seeds, and that restricts our rights as farmers, and me included, because I am also a farmer, and I'm using seeds that I inherited from my parents. And this also means access to the best locally adapted seed varieties, because the moment we are not allowed to, and if we only buy from the bigger companies, it means access to the best if you talk of bean seed, with a variety of bean seeds. If you talk about small grains, we also have quite a variety of small grains. That restriction to access to the base and locally adapted seed varieties is not something that we are taking lightly. And there are also restrictions on seed exchanges. Because we hear
Thank you, Dr. Nicola.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much. So I was talking about restrictions of seed exchange. There is also going to be an increased dependence on commercial seed because of 91, and this is not something that we are taking lightly. Both the charity organizations that are working with farmers, there's also the unionization of farmers, the new laws that will come with which are embedded in the TIPA. And use of biodiversity, we are quite aware that COVID-19 prioritizes commercial varieties, and that means moving to monoculture. And our society, our communities are not used to that. And that will potentially lead to loss of traditional locally adapted seed varieties and biodiversity. And I think that is worrying us quite a lot. And therefore, we've engaged as the church, we've engaged, and we even want to engage with the relevant minister and portfolio on it to discuss and to share with them our concerns regarding COVID-91. I think for now, here, with what specific questions relating to what we want to say or what we want to discuss with the minister, and I'm here and I can answer some of the questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for that input. It was absolutely brilliant. And I think this is really relevant for our conversation now because not only are African countries being pushed directly by the Fed through multinational seed companies to change their laws in favor of privatization and in favor of multinational companies themselves. This is being directly facilitated through now these agreements, these economic partnership agreements directly with the European Union and African countries, and Zimbabwe is the latest state that's facing this. So this EPA that you're referring to is this direct economic partnership agreement that is forcing Zimbabwe to change its law in favor of multinational seed companies, which will fundamentally undermine farmers' rights to seed, thus the right to food, thus our capacity to adapt to sustainable food systems and climate change that underpin ecological and social justice. So thank you so much, Dr. Leonardo. And this is really work that's also happening across the continent with a lot of support from our European NGOs, society partners and faith communities. So it's a central discussion in this conversation now. And I know that Tamara from AXA is also here with us and can give more information, I think, in the Q&A time about the work that's going on in other African countries around the Seed is Life campaign, supporting farmer management systems across the continent. So thank you so much for that input. I would really like to hand over now to our last panelist, Yutis Karai from the Kenyan Organic Agriculture Network, if I'm correct, who's going to speak to us about the community pesticide issues now. So the community, the perspectives on pesticides. So thank you so much. Kenyan Organic Agriculture Network. Is Peter, you here with us?
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank
Yes,
you. We can now. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much for having me and the opportunity to share our pesticide advocacy work. My name is Yutis Karai of Africana Organic Agriculture Network. It is a network that brings together organic stakeholders in Kenya. And part of our work includes advocacy against toxic pesticides. And promoting varieties is among the work that we do. I'll share some of the things that we've done and also some reports that we did, what we have done for the pesticides. And also to say that we did a petition to Parliament demanding that the pesticide regulatory authorities, that is the Pest Control Province Board and KEFIS, that is the Kenya Plant Health Inspection and Services, to withdraw high hazardous pesticides, particularly those banned in other jurisdictions, especially in Europe. We have three levels work, including providing alternatives to these pesticides, and demonstrating that they are not necessary, and that there are also other less toxic pesticides that are being registered for use, and that biopesticides and other approaches such as integrated management also work. In June this year, PCPP announced the withdrawal of 77 active ingredients and restricted the use of 200 yards, which is a big win. But the struggle continues since many of those highly toxic pesticides are still being imported to Kenya and really registered. This month, we also launched a study which we did together with Swedwatch. Swedwatch is a Swedish environmental organization, and the study highlighted how European companies export pesticides in the EU to countries with weaker laws at the scale. The report exposes a global pattern of toxic double standards and calls for production and export of these pesticides, and also demand that the European policymakers, as well as manufacturers of these pesticides, also take responsibility. The reason is why most of these pesticides are prohibited for use within the EU is due to their proven harm to the human health or environment, or toxicity, their toxicity to pollinators. Yet the current EU legislation still permits the production and export. A striking example of double standards. And this practice undermines human health and can have also disastrous impact on human health, the local environment, and the local environment for the importing countries. And because of these double standards on biodiversity, human health, and likelihood to document the widespread effect, particularly on the Kenyan farm workers and the communities. We did interviews some of the farm workers and the farmers who described a wide range of symptoms from eye to skin irritations to breathing problems and even further poisons. We also did interviews with health professionals who reported increasing rates of diseases such as cancer that could be attributed to exposure of these toxic pesticides. And the risks and what we found in Kenya, or what we find in Kenya, is also mirrored in other countries, particularly those in Africa and in other parts of the world that have low or medium income cases. And when we grow crops for export, and we use these pesticides, they are usually rejected, particularly in the EU. But the petrochemical crops exports among our main contributors of the Kenyan GDP. And in the recent years, the number and the volumes of interceptions has been increasing. And when these products are exported, they usually checked at the EU borders for maximum residue levels. And if those bounty pesticides are detected, or if the MRL are exceeded, and then they are destroyed to the exporters' costs. The exporters usually upload these costs to farmers. Who are creating the most economically valuable and least responsible for the problem. And it is not only unethical, nor dishonest that these products that they produce are probably not for use in their own countries, that is the chemicals, and when these pesticides are used on export crops, then they are rejected at farmers' cost. These accountability gaps must be addressed. Farmers will not bear the cost of unsafe exports, while pesticide companies continue to profit. Here in Kenya, we have made significant milestones, particularly as I said, in June 77, active ingredients moved from the Kenyan market. The responsibility must not only as also related countries to us as the importing country. We should not be the ones who clean up the mess, the consequences of pure harmful exports. The solution is quite straightforward. What is required is that stop producing and exporting what the EU has already deemed to be dangerous for the EU. If it is bad for Europeans, it should also be bad for Africans and other countries considered. And protecting people and the planet concern for profits. It's also important that from my end that we take the things specific and pass together as a region, as a continent, learn from each other, and more importantly, pushing for pesticide manufacturing companies to stop the production and exploitation of these products. On the same breath, we need to strengthen our national law.
Begin to wrap up, please. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm actually wrapping up by saying that we need to strengthen our national laws to ensure that HPPs are not imported, unless the management of the one that is also improved. Thank you. I want to say many thanks to the organizers and for bringing us and giving an opportunity to share what we are doing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. And really, the Kenyans are leading a struggle that we're all facing in Africa. Pesticides are something that is only increasing, and there is a huge amount of dumping of toxic pesticides in Africa, in fact, from all over the world. But the fact that these are very much banned in the EU and still being very deliberately funded and driven into our agriculture systems very systematically is a complete moral injustice. And so this is really, really important that we work with our European partners to collaborate on stopping this. And once we can stop this trade, there's a whole other way. Building the capacity of our national agencies to regulate the pesticides that are coming in from Europe, build the same capacity that we need to regulate the other pesticides that are coming in from China, from India, and the rest of Africa, traded amongst Africa, that really are killing our food and farming systems and our ecology, and making us incredibly, incredibly sick. So thank you so much for that very, very important input. And strong recommendations from Kenya. It's a very broad campaign that I think we're all behind. So thank you. Without further ado, I would like to, I'm not going to go back to the speakers now. I would like to just open up for some questions and some responses from the floor. I've already seen a few comments in the chat. If you have any questions, please do raise your hand if you would like to speak directly. Otherwise, perhaps I have one really that I did look at for Susie. So maybe we can start with Susie and then we'll create some other questions. So really looking at the Global Gateway and other funding instruments and partnerships within Africa, are there any efforts by the EU to ensure that the governments in Africa are also being held accountable to some of the broader commitments that we are making as a collective? And kind of what is the EU, how is the EU supporting, or in your opinion, strengthening or weakening African long-term food sovereignty and self-reliance? If you could speak a little bit to that, that would be fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for giving me the floor. A complicated question, not a straight answer to be given. Europe always said that it wants to have high standards, but in general, what we see is that, and it's exactly the same with the pesticides. They put very high standards for their own citizens to protect health and environment within Europe, but when it comes to actions abroad, there's a double standard, and it's things that we prohibit to use in our countries. We still export abroad. The pesticides are a very good example, but the same goes for other things. in the area of agriculture, we are putting a bit of our hope into forthcoming operational guidelines on mainstreaming agroecology within the value chains that DG INPA is producing, and that would help also programs under Global Gateway, so the new investment vehicle that Europe is promoting, but it would also help that is within value chains. There are some principles of agroecology that are being integrated in that. But Europe the European Union is a house with very many rooms, and although DG INPA is really taking leadership on promoting agroecology, we see that at the same time that same European Union continues to export pesticides that are prohibited to use in our own agriculture, and it's also forcing legislative changes when it comes to import, etc. So we should be more confident in saying, we will also protect global health and the environment abroad, but I'm afraid that, and the same goes for the food sovereignty, Europe is more and more interested in its own, they're handling in their own interest and not so much in the interest of the people they are supposed to be supporting.
Thank you so much, Cynthia. I think it was a good clarification to make. And so it's again just the importance of this kind of dialogue between European actors and African actors that we can strengthen our own partnership to hold governments to account and funders to account at national level as well as at the global level, and particularly within the AU-EU collaborations and discussions. This is really, really important. A lot of the funding, the African Union is driving a lot of the agenda of where the funding comes from, and this is a key mechanism for us to intervene at. And so strong recommendations are really coming out from this group in this session. Thank you very much. I don't see any hands for further direct questions. I would thus love to just ask Kamara from AFSA to share briefly about some of the struggles in other African countries and the Sea Design campaign, as well as the work, the very important work that's been done by the AFSA members and our Sea Design group to hold the African Union to account and to a lot of activity around the interrelations of football within the African Union and the development of African seeds, farm management systems policy, and the concerns that we have with football. So, Kamara, if you could maybe just give us a brief perspective from African side, that would be great. Thanks.
Ok, merci Frances, bonsoir tout le monde. J'avais déjà dit des choses dans la présentation, mais je vais essayer de répéter et renforcer un peu. J'en profite pour remercier le Cadia et vraiment c'est ce qui se passe au niveau pays. Ce que je voulais donc ajouter, c'est que je voulais commencer par dire que pour Union pour la protection des subventions végétales est une initiative pleinement privée et qui doit être privée pour pas se dire que c'est là le profit et le principal intérêt. Même si les niveaux des disent que c'est pour stimuler l'innovation et la recherche pour la sécurité alimentaire, mais au finish, et la tendance est que le gouvernement veut contrôler les semences, la production et la circulation de semences. Pourquoi? Parce que dans le régime pauvre, il faut vraiment interdire. D'abord, c'est le régime pauvre qui a façonné, qui a influencé toutes les réglementations semencières qui sont dans le pays. C'est dans les réglementations. Le partage le commerce, l'échange, la sauvegarde, etc. de semences paysannes, donc les semences endogènes et les semences de terre. Donc, d'une part, on renforce un régime qui veut réduire la biodiversité, et d'autre part, il est formellement interdit. Quand on dit que c'est criminalisé, c'est parce que c'est interdit. Et celui qui franchit la loi, on doit le renfermer. C'est parce que nos pays, il y a encore beaucoup de paysans que ces lois ne peuvent pas être mises en œuvre. Donc, il faut le considérer comme une vraie menace. L'autre chose, c'est que, c'est de forcer les différents pays à adhérer à l'eau. Ça n'a pas marché, on a créé les deux institutions régionales, une pour les anglophones, une pour les francophones. Je les appelle l'institution, mais c'est les organismes. Or, pour les francophones, à nouveau pour les anglophones. Pour encore privatiser la France, qui met des droits de propriété intellectuelle, qui met des brevets et des certificats qui donnent l'exclusivité à celui qui a fait une petite amélioration sur une toute petite semence. Une semence qui est utilisée par de grandes communautés. Là aussi, ce n'est pas un problème de marché. Et c'est là où on utilise maintenant les accords de partenariat économique, certains programmes de l'Union européenne, et aujourd'hui, même dans les cas, la zone de libre-échange continentale africaine voudrait soutenir un peu ces questions de retour. Maintenant, ça fait les menaces. Qu'est-ce que nous sommes en train de faire? Effectivement, ce que nous pouvons pas faire, c'est excellent. Il y a beaucoup de pays qui sont en train de le faire. Par exemple, le Bénin, il y a eu des choses très tôt à l'Assemblée nationale pour que la loi encore ne passe pas. Des pays comme le Seychelles, Maurice, Madagascar, Burundi, Imo, etc. ne sont pas officiellement ni par la voie individuelle, ni par la voie pays ne sont pas liés à la force. Et des mouvements comme ceux que le Zimbabwe est en train de faire sont en train de se faire là-bas petit à petit pour un peu je vais utiliser les gouvernements pour le dire qu'il y a beaucoup d'options pour gérer les finances. Et parmi les options, il y a les systèmes paysans. Il y a des options qui permettent effectivement d'inviter, d'encourager la recherche sans pour autant privatiser les choses. Tous ces régimes-là existent. Et ainsi, souvent, pour le plaider, pour défendre quelque chose, il faut aussi proposer une alternative. Et c'est dans ces propositions d'alternative, dans le groupe de travail comme ça, qui est beaucoup inspiré par les mouvements régionaux, Saiba, COASP, COPATIEN, etc. Il y a beaucoup de mouvements qui font de petites choses, mais quand on les met ensemble, sont très grands. Et c'est ça qu'on a déposé au niveau de l'Union africaine. Quand on s'était en train d'écrire pour les systèmes semenciers, parce que il faut le dire à beaucoup qui avait dans le nouveau plan de développement détaillé de la République africaine, il faut voir les systèmes semenciers. Et nous avons travaillé ensemble dans une commission restreinte pour proposer un cadre politique. Et dans les discussions, dans cette politique, il y a déjà une classe qui, si peu, va être commencée à mise en œuvre à partir de janvier 2010. On discutait pour et les gens qui étaient dans ça ont dit qu'il faudrait que l'on sorte de pouvoir. Les gens qui étaient dans ça, c'était les agents, les fonctionnaires de l'Union africaine et de certaines communautés économiques régionales. Il faudrait qu'on sorte de pouvoir parce que ça ne nous arrache pas. Donc, il y a des pays qui sont en cours, il y a des propositions qui sont en cours, et ceux qui sont de l'autre côté, qui pensent que oui, c'est juste de travailler pour tout pays, y compris les parents, il faut savoir qu'à l'intérieur de l'Union africaine, tout le monde ne nous arrache pas. Les gens sont en train de trouver les voies pour être LGBT, et nous savons aussi qu'ils sont ici. Il y a des outils, il faut les partager pour que l'on puisse faire de bonnes propositions. Merci beaucoup.
Indeed, thank you very much, Kamara, and I think everyone here, please do keep in touch with Kamara. You can reach Kamara, you can reach myself.
others in Southern Africa around this campaign around farmers' rights, which is very timely work now that's happening within the African Union. So please do keep in touch about this very important campaign going forward. So thank you so much, Kumara, for giving that little bit of an overview. We are running very much out of time. I think that this has been a great session to bring these very important issues, the pesticides as well as the seed work, and then Susie, your presentation really around this financing mechanism for agroecology into Africa. So I would like to just ask if you have one minute of just final contribution that you would like to say before we close this panel. I'm going to start with you, Susie. I'm going to then go to Dr. Lakadia, and then go to you, Eustace. So over to you. Thank you, Susie. Just 1 minute. Thanks.
Yeah, I hope that when in the discussion between the EU and the AU, there will be a lot of emphasis on being coherent, on policy coherence, because I'm not going to speak for the African Union, but the European Union is not coherent in itself. When you are talking about sustainable food systems transformation, there's not a million transformations that can go. If you really want to be truly sustainable, then the way to go is agroecology. We all know it and it's been acknowledged. But the European Union doesn't have the guts to make that choice in the long term and to really work towards it. And I really hope that people will find the courage to policymakers will find the courage and protect our rights to
So thank you so much, really. I mean, the importance, the imperativeness of holistic funding to agroecology as a transformative agenda, not an interventionist approach, is absolutely imperative, and we need this as a moral leadership for our time. Thank you so much. Dr. Leopardo, anything final to add?
Sure, thank you so much. I wanted to say that the knowledge and information that we have on 91, I also realized that there are quite a number of students who are here present today. It's one thing to be aware of what is happening and also to confirm around the group of 91. But what is critical at this point in time is for us to join hands and have a strong force to actually work towards the removal of this undue requirement, which we find in the draft of EU IPA, which harmonizes with the IPA. But if it is removed, if it should just be removed, I know government is already worked or has made some steps, but we should raise our confidence, and we can only do that collectively as Zimbabweans. Thank you so much.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Dr. Lekola. And I think we really look forward to working together next year. Everyone here from Zimbabwe later will be presented in a government policy meeting by farmers next year in early January by Sky Partners in Zimbabwe, and we're really looking to partner with like-minded organizations to really carry this agenda forward. Really strongly. It is the foundation of food and farmers' rights and cultural systems in Zimbabwe. It's absolutely imperative. So thank you so much, Dr. Lepadia, and everyone here. Please do continue to be in touch on that issue. Thank you. Lastly, anything from you, Steve? Thank you so much. One last point from you.
Yeah, last point, we have guided all of us that we join hands and amplify our voices. So that we have these toxic pesticides and these type of standards stopped, and we can make it as a region, as a continent, and yeah, collectively we're going to be.
Thank you so much. I think that's a really great ending, and I think that there's a number of campaigns around at the moment that we can all sign up to support the and the bigger campaign about stop the toxic trade into Africa. So I think we can share those links here and we can continue to be in touch on that. So really, I mean, this has been a very important panel really looking at exposing the threats by and related people that are really undermining parliamentary systems and biodiversity on our continent. We're really looking to ban very concretely the export of highly hazardous pesticides from the EU that's sort of pushed into our region, and really look to our leaders for leadership on that, and advocating for EU public funding to holistically support the agroecology the transformation agenda. So thank you all for your time. Thank you for being part of this very important session. And I'm going to hand back over to Selena to take us into the next session from this afternoon. Thank you all very much.
Great, thank you, Francis, for this great session and great moderation, and also for your amazing timekeeping capabilities. So without further ado, we start the third and last session, which will be a little bit shorter than the prior two sessions. So we will have another 45 minutes of panel talk and a brief exchange. And that will be it for the rest of the day. So the last question today will be on the topic of debt and reparations. And in this session, we will have three objectives that we want to raise. We want to firstly show the link between historical injustice and current structural dependency by highlighting how slavery, colonialism, and resource extraction have created enduring moral and economic debt that shape Africa's present-day vulnerabilities. Secondly, we also want to advance on this talk a more multi-dimensional reparations agenda by framing how reparations go way beyond financial transfers, and how it has to include land restitution and ecological restitution, among debt cancellation and other institutional reforms. And then lastly, in this session, we aim to mobilize the AU and EU partnership for transformative action, so that we can identify strategies how European and African actors can operationalize the matter of reparations through coordinated advocacy, policy shifts, and solidarity, and so that we can ensure that AU and EU have a lasting cooperation that address these power imbalances. So for this, we have four wonderful panelists with us today, which I would like to introduce to you briefly. So we first have Dr. Boniface Mabanza, who works as a consultant for the Ecumenical Service of Southern Africa at the Werkstattökonomie in Heidelberg in Germany, where he focuses on trade policy, raw minerals policy, and globalization. And in addition to that, he also works as a trainer and advisor on anti-racism and decolonialization processes. Secondly, we have Francesca De Gasparis, who is the executive director at SAI, where they work on the energy and food network, and this relates to climate policy and governance. The aim of SAI is for faith communities to build resilience and to live in harmony with nature. Our third great panelist is Reverend Father Luiso Emerick Bisilambila. He's a Catholic priest, and he currently acts as chaplain to the African Union Commission, and he also is the SICAM AU liaison officer who's based in Addis Ababa in Ethiopia. And then lastly, we have among our panelists Dr. Patrick Ndansa-Olomo, who is the Director of Economic Development, Integration and Trade, and the Head of Economic Policy and Sustainable Development at the African Union Commission. So have a very warm welcome to our panelists. And without further ado, I would like to pass the word to Dr. Boniface Mabanza, with the question of why are we talking about reparations and what exactly are we talking about? Yes, I think we're having some minor technological issues, so I think Boniface will have to join from outside the room, which is a bit heavy because we do have two speakers here with us, Dr. Boniface Moranza and Father Emily. Both of them are with us in the house, but due to technical constraints, they will join on. However, note that they are in the room and afterwards they are there and willing to exchange and work with you. So now, Boniface, I see you found a place. Please go ahead.
J'espère que c'est mieux maintenant, vous pouvez m'entendre. C'est mieux qui est bien? Ok.
Yes, nice.
Alors, je préfère faire ma petite contribution en français. Je pense que depuis ce matin, je dans toutes les interventions de cet après-midi, nous avons entendu parler de facettes de l'organisation. Et pour le rappeler, parce que c'est le point de départ pour parler des réparations, la colonisation a été un moment de destruction pour l'Afrique. La colonisation a détruit les systèmes de connaissances. La colonisation a détruit la nature d'une forme d'écosystème. La colonisation a détruit les mémoires. Et la colonisation a aussi détruit ce qui pourrait être le futur profit de l'autonomie. Et la colonisation est beaucoup plus que cela. C'est aussi un système centré sur l'économie. Au centre de la colonisation, c'était le système d'extraction des richesses, des matières premières de l'Afrique qui étaient transportées dans les fameuses zones. C'était aussi un système de transfert des finances des pays colonisés vers les pays colonisateurs. Tout cela, destruction des connaissances, des mémoires, de la culture, mais aussi pillage matériel justifierait en soi déjà des réparations. Et je pense que lorsque nous parlons de colonisation, nous ne parlons pas de réparations, nous parlons d'anticipation. Nous parlons d'un système qui continue sur différentes formes. Nous avons entendu parler des accords des partenariats économiques. On peut créer maintenant un système de semences. Nous avons entendu parler de toutes les initiatives qui sont prises en fait pour garder l'Afrique dans l'échelle de la catégorie. Et c'est ça qui va nous pousser à penser parce que dans le contexte où certains d'entre nous vivent en Europe, avec la création des institutions supranationales et européennes, certains se posent la question, est-ce que l'Union européenne est concernée par ce qui s'est passé pendant la colonisation? Elle n'existait pas, c'était des États comme la France, l'Allemagne et d'autres qui sont en fait impliqués à ça. Oui, il y a quelque chose de vrai à cela. En Allemagne, je vis en ce moment, nous avons une campagne qui concerne le génocide allemand en Namibie. Nous essayons de mobiliser les institutions allemandes pour leur dire, par la colonisation allemande, 80% des compagnons ont été éliminés, 50% de nappes ont été éliminés, leurs terres ont été confisquées, leur bétail a été confisqué ou tué. Tout cela demande réparation parce que lorsqu'on voit la situation de ces populations aujourd'hui, elles ont été déposées de leur terre à Namibie aujourd'hui, la population blanche qui représente moins de 10% de la population possède plus de 70% des terres rares. Alors ça concerne un État. On peut dire ça de la France, on peut dire ça de la Belgique, on peut dire ça de la Portugal. Mais ce qui est important à savoir dans cette phase que nous vivons, c'est le fait que le puissance coloniale existe leur influence, non pas seulement par leur institution nationale, mais aussi par toutes les institutions où elles sont impliquées. Donc, vous tenez l'Europeia par les acteurs politiques, par les acteurs d'investissement, l'OECD, l'Organisation mondiale du commerce, les institutions financières internationales, la Banque mondiale, le Fonds monétaire international, le G20, mais aussi le G7. Toutes ces institutions contribuent à maintenir les logiques coloniales. Et donc, écarter toutes ces influences pour se focaliser sur les États membres, les États qui ont exercé la colonisation guerrière, ça serait via la mobilisation de ce qui est en fait la substance, j'ai reviendrai, c'est changer le système. Ça veut dire donc changer cette lecture de focalisation sur les États qui ont fait la colonisation guerrière. Ça veut dire changer les objectifs centraux des répartitions. Et elle concerne la transformation des institutions et assurer que l'exploitation telle que nous la vivons aujourd'hui ne puisse pas continuer. Donc, vous voyez donc cette petite contribution et le critère d'implication directe derrière lequel se cache l'Union européenne, par exemple, que ce critère ne faut pas parce qu'il ignore les mécanismes structurels par lesquels l'exploitation est maintenue dans un contexte post-colonial. Dans le cadre conceptuel des réparations adaptées au contexte d'aujourd'hui, la prendre en considération la gouvernance supranationale, la complexité des chaînes d'approvisionnement et les dynamiques des coopérations d'anciennes puissances coloniales au sein de l'Union européenne. C'est seulement en confrontant ces dimensions systémiques que les réparations peuvent atteindre ce qu'on s'en c'est-à-dire transformer les institutions et les logiques de coopération pour assurer que le passé violent ne se perde plus. Je vous remercie.
Thank you so much, Boniface, for setting the scene and contextualizing this exchange about reparations. I would like to pass the word to Father Luis Henrique. I know you also connect the issue of reparations closely to matters around land justice. Could you please explain how you understand the linkage and which role that translation plays in reparations?
Thank you very much, dear friend, Father Henrique, representing the Symposium of Episcopal Conferences of Africa and Madagascar. And I'm very happy to be part of this panel because in a special way we are in the year of reparations in the African Union. As you may know, as you may recall, the theme of the African Union this year is justice for Africans, people of African descent through reparations. And I would like to draw the connection.
And Father Emmerich, I think we lost you. Father Emmerich? Okay, looks like we lost him. Hopefully he will join back once the connection is more stable. I will pass the word then to Francesca de Gasparis to also stay on the topic of land justice and reparations. Francesca, I know your organization is also very active in the fight for the rights of small-scale landowners. Can you maybe tell us what exactly is that your role and use the private sector play in the whole discussion?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for bearing with us. And I know it's quite late by now, but we really appreciate the opportunity to give
on this panel, very interesting conversations going on so far. I'm Francesca Di Gaspris. I'm the Executive Director of SAPSI, as Selena mentioned earlier. And I'm really here representing faith leaders across Africa who signed a letter calling for reparations, in particular from the Gates Foundation, but also from other funders who are funding industrial agriculture in Africa. And when we talk about the debt, the colonial debt, the debt of apartheid, South Africa, these injustices appear historic. But actually, when we look at current funding and current funding models, we're hearing kind of the current and going into the future. And so there's a moral imperative. And I want to, as the executive director of a faith organization, really speak into the issue of faith. We know that the earth is the Lord's and everything in it. And so there's a moral and a spiritual imperative. But also know that this year is the Jubilee year in the country. Okay. So we want to really not just call for reparations that speak to finance, but also in terms of how do we restore our connection with land, water, seas, and environments. Stop thinking of this as commodities to be exploited, but rather go much further and think about our sacred connection with the land and our role as humans. And I think there's a deep sense of how trust has really been broken. It's from people like me who came to Africa, white people who read the Bible, people who continue to do that. And in particular, we're looking at the funding models that are funding ongoing destruction of farming practices, dispossessing people from their intellectual property. And long we've seen this disparity between what is thought of as intellectual rights, intellectualism, and a disregard of the African intellectualism, the African knowledge, and the African tradition, both in terms of the faith, but also just really for what our small-scale farmers are doing, and how they are feeding our nations, how they are feeding our continents, and the way that they connect into nature, the coded wisdom of their seeds, and how they care for their seeds. This is a deep spiritual connection, not just the knowledge system, but also a way of being a part of the ecosystem in communion. So I think the depth of the economic injustice is huge, and I don't want to minimize that in any way, and how that strips us of dignity and rights to live in harmony with nature. But also there's the unpaid moral debt, the unpaid logical debt, and these things are often not costed. So that's why we really are so pleased that, over 600 faith leaders have stood up and signed our letter directed at the Gates Foundation. It's the second letter we've written to them. The last time they consulted with us, actually what we want to do is build a movement that actually speaks to lived reality of communities, of farmers. We feel that faith leaders in particular need to speak up, but of course everyone is welcome to sign the letter and to get involved and to really bear witness to the kinds of destruction that's happening in their lands with their people. So we don't believe that reparations are a random demanded. In fact, it's just really about trying to address something which long has been outstanding. And I do feel that the EU has got a very powerful role to play. We're seeing at COP30 going on in Ghana at the moment that there's this push, very, very heavy push by our corporate leaders to really continue to commoditize nature. And so it's very important that we actually don't accept this sort of minimum requirement of a carbon market approach. Anything else, let's not diminish what we're asking for just to finance, because that diminishes all of us. So I really want to speak strongly to this, to the faith perspective of repentance, of restoration, of healing and renewal. And I think that's what we want to be seeing. What's been expected from Africa
What's been happening in terms of our soils, our labor, our seas, and our futures. We need to shift this power. So, I'm really honored that I got a chance to speak on this panel. I would love to share more about why it is that we've done this work. It's in partnership with NASA and many others who've done the research into why industrial systems are being so destructive in Africa. So our approach, while I'm speaking from a great perspective, is based on science and evidence from communities that we're not seeing poverty being addressed. Agriculture. We're not seeing people become rich from industrial agriculture. We're seeing this is creation of elite and leaving everyone out, including nature, which should be central to our work and our efforts. So yeah, for faith leaders, I think the most important thing for us is to continue in our prophetic mandate, which is speaking to power, to speak up for those most vulnerable, and for nature whose voice cannot be heard. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Francesca, for your words. I'm speaking for and then he came back online, so I would like to give back the word to him, and so he can make his claims and elaborate a bit further on his perspective on how the issue of reparations and land justice interlink. Before we give the word then to Dr. Patrick Lumo, who will give also a contextualization from the AU side. So please, Patrick, you have the word.
Thank you very much, Selena. So since we are talking about the reparations, I'm glad to announce that my connection line has been repaired. So that is how we should also repair our continent. And it is very much in line with the theme of the year. So I want to say that President Macron was the president of France. The president of France was born after colonization. I've been telling Africans, why have we been talking so much about colonization when all of us, at least the students we were dealing with, were born after colonization? So we should focus on issues of today. And I also want to mention that there are people, very activists on social media, like American Candace Owens. She has been against the very idea of reparations because for her it doesn't make sense. Well, the good news is that the things that happened in the colonial system, they left a lasting impact, which can be developed today. So we have to acknowledge that there is the moral debt of slavery and colonization, which is not just a human debt, but it's also debt related to the land. And I'm happy that my two predecessors have mentioned that one. So, African people have been uprooted from their ancestral territories. We know the case of Namibia, but it's not the only case. And they have been expropriated. And the fact that is concentrated in the hands of the few. As a result, Africans have been left with degraded ecosystem. They want to
Union Commission, and we would love to hear you respond to the perspectives to the society that have been raised by the other panelists, and we would love for you to also provide some context on the AU's activities on the matter of debt and migration, especially in the face of the newly pronounced decade of reparations of the AU. So please, you have the word.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and good evening or good afternoon to you all. It is important to have a discussion today ahead of the African Union, the European Union Summit. And I do believe that it is quite a timely and opportune discussion that we are having today. In that perspective, for the African Union, and it was reminded by Father Imperi that I would like to sincerely appreciate and also appreciate my predecessor who spoke about very important issues. It has to be reminded that the African Union took upon herself to have this year as the year of justice and reparation for African descent and Africans. So it is important because we do believe that reparation should be at the core of the international actions that are aiming to end the difficulties in which Africa is today, which are difficulties rooted in the past. And in that perspective, just to give you some of the key highlights of the year for us, we have been advocating at the G20 and in other fora to see how the African debt problem can be addressed in a sustainable manner. And in that, you can already see that our debt has absolutely or exponentially increased in the last decade due to factors that are not relating to the fundamentals of our economies, but that are relating to the consequences of the economic turbulences that are faced by other regions of the world. And in that perspective, we wanted to highlight the fact that Africa's debt is unjust, Africa's debt is unfair, and that Africa's debt should be comprehensively addressed. Just to take an example, we are paying 500% in terms of interest when we are paying our debt to capital markets, which is 500% above where the budget and development banks are required. This is the premium on the continent that is still to be conceived in the market section that all the other international partners have, on the continent. The continent is estimated to be the most riskier in the stigma that we can see coming from the perceptions of the in the colonial era. But also that led to slavery. We have contributed to the transformation of the world, and it is important that that moral imperative that calls for repression be at the center of the global attention. But unfortunately, and I want to end with that, you do believe that we live in a rule-based world because power has become the way things are handled internationally. Without Africa being a powerful continent, we will speak about liberation for centuries and never will be repaired. Secondly, it is a rule-based world, and I heard some of the speakers alluding to the rules that are crafted in international, arena where Africa has a little footprint. For instance, at the OECD, our African countries who are participating to shaping international tax cooperation, for instance, are not participating on an equal footing, which means that the resolutions or the decisions that are made there are certainly not in favor of Africa's development. And that is what we're trying to work to denounce and to try to shift the narrative of international tax cooperation and also get sustainability at the United Nations, even though the United Nations also has own weaknesses. But there is need for us to have a comprehensive approach on how we are dealing with these issues. We have started the work on the continent to make sure that we create a space for transparency, for accountability, but also for a call for reparation that will be heard in the international community. And in that perspective, we have the Lome Declaration that was adopted in April 2025. We have the Common African Position that is comprehensively about how the continent can position itself in the global discussion to resolve that challenge. I want to conclude by saying that the debt challenge that the continent is facing today is a huge development challenge, because all the resources that we are collecting are not used to finance social sectors such as education, health, and even agriculture, as we spoke about agriculture, and even development at large. Service the debt, and as I said, we are paying 500% of interest, which means that there is an imbalance here, there is unfairness, and there is lack of transparency in the way things are done. And I appreciate the speakers who talk about the moral imperative that addressing the debt challenge of the continent represents. With the support of yourself, we will be able to trace a path that can be sustainable. But let's be mindful of the fact that unless Africa becomes the strong never will happen, we are in a power-based and in a rule-based world that is absolutely unequal. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. and insight into the perspective of the AU on this matter. We will now open the floor for questions from the audience, and looking at the chat, I already saw some comments and questions coming in, so I will now pick the first question. Here is one from Jennifer Tracy on asking, EU development and climate financing and economic partnership agreements generally support Africa's development, or do they perpetuate structural inequality that recreate cycles of debt and dependency? I think I would like to pass the question to Dr. Bonifaz. Would you like to respond? Absolutely, no worries. The question was, do EU development and climate financing, as well as economic partnership agreements, generally support Africa's development, or do they perpetuate structural inequality that recreate cycles of debt and dependency?
Yes, thank you very much for the question. I will try to address it and link it to what I think many panelists today have already highlighted the kind of measures we see from the European Union when it comes to addressing climate is what, how can you call it, greenwashing. It's a kind of creating a aura through which things remain the way they are in Europe. It means the climate change remains change from fossil fuel energies to renewable energies. And for that, which also has made a group dividing fossil fuel energies, has to take the other role now by providing land for the production of solar energy, wind, and green hydrogen. And by doing so, the roles remain the same. African countries will remain providers of raw materials, and the transformation will be happening somewhere else. Somebody was when asked what it doesn't happen that the transformative industry can move to African countries where you have the raw materials like platinum, like copper, but also have the cheaper energy, like in Namibia, where companies want to produce green hydrogen. I think from that example we can see what is called right now financing is not for Africa. The same behavior today morning, I tried to explain that one of the biggest negatives of colonialism is for Africa having a very external oriented economy. African countries don't create among themselves. They don't have to trade with, they don't have the infrastructures, and it's a colonial legacy. What we need is Africa right now is really for products which are in demand in Africa so that African countries can trade among each other. And for that, we have to rely on ourselves, and then what much was saying. And when we speak about caring, it won't happen as a project. We have to shift the power dynamics. We start creating the monopolies where we have an advantage. For example, with platinum, with copper, with cocoa beans, with a proper strategy that everybody will understand. We have to talk and to talk seriously with this continent. Is the only way to go. If we shift to that, then reparation can come because some region will have something to lose if they don't respect Africa. It's also the way we will change the trade rules. But getting there, it's really we cannot expect the development of the African continent to be financed by other regions. We have to develop ourselves by developing ourselves. It means we have to create the capacities, create and consolidate the small steps we are making is the only way to go. It doesn't mean that we don't need cooperation with others, but we need cooperation which can become.
Thank you very much, Boniface, for your words on this. As part of the Women in STEM Club, would you also like to respond to this question?
No, thank you very much, and I would like just to echo what Dr. Boniface rightly said, and to change the rules of the game, you have to have the power to do it. It is a power-based world in which we are today. It is a rule-based world. Failure to understand the positioning that the continent should have in the global setting will be one of the weaknesses that will always underline our positioning and our voice in global discussions. Let me take an example. We are at the G20 now. And when you see the position of China against all the other developed economies, you can see that China can speak loudly and claim its position in the global setting because they have the power that they have constructed year and year and decades again. It is important for us to understand that no one will come to transform Africa. And this conversation on even though we have said that it is a moral imperative, we have to understand that when we are driving forward, looking at the mirror shouldn't be an obstacle for us to see the road that is ahead of us. We have opportunities, we have the African continental free trade area, which is a market of 1.4 billion people as we speak today, which is the population of China. But the demographics are showing that Africa will be home to 2.7 billion people in just 2 years. Let's imagine this with the population combined of China and India. And when you look at the development dynamics, you will see that all the continents that have been able to develop demographic dividend that they have created and that has led to their economic transformation. Africa should see the momentum. We shouldn't sit at the bottom of productive transformation. Africa should industrialize. How are we considering that the continent globally estimated at approximately 125 to nearly 200 billion US dollars a year? It is extremely painful to see that. When we look at the financial system, we don't have monetary financing stability mechanism to allow us to navigate the difficulties that can come from debt, which says that we have as Africans to understand that our time is now and that we have to take decisive actions moving forward. An important comment about good governance to make sure that when we borrow money in international market, that we use it for what we have just considered to use it for. This is important. It will be the trap that will lead us to the country. The past has created the space for what we have today, but the future is in our hands, and we need to create the space for a transformed Africa, for a stronger Africa, for an Africa that will take its voice in the global arena. So I just wanted to highlight this to say that we have to be mindful of the fact that we are.
Thank you very much, Dr. Omomo. I think these are some great closing words with which I would like to wrap up this panel talk. So my heartfelt thank you to all of you for giving us not only a deeper insight into the multi-dimensionality of reparation, but also the structural issues to be considered here, but also like structural continuities to be considered here, but also then by making the link to African realities and the reality of land justice, which is really, really one of the all of you for your contributions, and I also thank everyone in the audience very, very much for your presence and your attention. Please, everyone, feel free to also go through the chat because there have been some more information shared. I also see there have been some networking and contacts exchanged, so that is really, really great. With that, I would like to close not only this panel, but also this afternoon. We have one final closing word from Dr. Hakim from AFA, which I would like to give the floor to yes, close out this meeting. Hakim, you have the floor.
Thank you. I hope you are hearing me. You are hearing me well?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Good evening, good afternoon, everyone. As I mentioned, I'm Hakim from Alliance to Sovereignty in Africa and Tanzania, Australia. It's not an alliance of organized media networks of the market in Africa, members in 50 countries out of the 55, which now cover 100 million citizens. Friends, colleagues, fellow artists, brothers and sisters, partners, and other actors today, we have reached the end of a long, rich and powerful day. On behalf of Alliance to Sovereignty in Africa and East and Southern African Farmers Forum, I want to express my profound gratitude to the organizers and the speaker of each one of you for your presence and your contribution. This morning, our brothers and sisters with courage and gravity. We have efforts for peace, governance, and economic action, the social foundation without which no progress is possible. We say the things reality of showing respect and innovation and the peaceful fight for freedom of expression. These are not isolated issues, they are direct consequences of systems that we must serve the people and their interests. We also have the prioritization, the consequence of saying government, post-that infrastructure and trade with industry, that the riches from our natural resources will further benefit our communities, and that our women and youth will have a place in the economy. These hopes are universal across our community. This afternoon, we connected these national struggles with the broader EU relationship. We have held away this partnership. We have not shied away from the difficult truth. We have spoken with painful clarity of the tasks of inheritance that our people are forced to live in without speaking up by extractive leaders. By unjust architectures and by food systems that recognize profit opportunities. We have spoken about the painful paradox. Our planet is rich in resources, yet our people are often left with the burdens, the environmental damage from extractive industries, the passionate unjust rates, and food systems that drive profit over the well-being of communities. We heard from the front lines. From Mozambique to the mining communities, we had how promise of payment and extracting two often bring conflicts, displacement, and the violence of human rights, human dignity, risking a new form of inequality. From our farmers and civil custodians, we had how our culture is driven by population, similar to the April 1991, and the toxic trade in banned business. This is found without sovereignty and wisdom in our land and people. And in our final session, we are reminded of the foundational industries that the surrogate of colonization and slavery and the manifesting today in the street jackets of financial gain and the system with the society. But today was not only a risk of disease, it was a perspective for healing. The tragedy is here and is being used from the ground up. It's called as equality. It's the practice of full sovereignty, where multiple corporations control the sea, in water, and knowledge. It is the vision of internal equality, where human activities serve both people and the planet. Respect the soundness of creation is the demand for liberating justice, response for conservation of the the restoration of our ecosystems, and the fundamental balance of power. So what is our message to the EU leaders meeting next week? Our message is simple. We cannot discuss our future without us. Meaning, without us is not us. The struggle we made this morning in for justice, for the fair share of resources, and the still struggles we have discussed this afternoon. They are interconnected. Our desire for real, meaningful spaces of sincere participation, do not just provide us to speak, listen, and act what we hear. The solution for a just transition to a sustainable food system and individual trade are already here in our communities. They are rooted in our knowledge, our resilience, and our ongoing commitment to justice. As we move from this room, let us carry the energy of this summit forward. Let us strengthen our solidarity across conflict. Let us continue to amplify the voices of the ground. Let the leaders of the EU summit know we are not mere stakeholders. We are the non-authors. We are the dignity and the future of future that is truly sustainable. Just
I think we are lost you.
you're hearing.
Now we're hearing you again. Can you?
Okay. I don't know whether she was hearing myself. When the leaders of the EU summit, that we are not mere stakeholders. We are more members. We are the guardians of dignity and the future of the world. The future that is truly succeeding. Just and for all. Thank you. The struggle continues. Sana, thank you for coming. Thank you for participating and for all your views. Let us meet again. Push this campaign. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you so much, Hakim. Before everyone is leaving, I would like to ask you to turn on your camera so we can have a farewell picture of everyone that was in the meeting. So if you would like to, please turn on your camera. So then I will take a screenshot and we will have a little souvenir from this meeting. Amazing. So many cameras are turning on. Let's wait another moment. Okay, 1 second.
And we would like to thank the interpreters.
Yes, go ahead.
No, just that. Thanks to the interpreters.
Great. Yes, thank you for raising this. Thank you for the great for your work in translating all of this meeting on the whole day. Without you, it would not have been possible to gather here. So really thank you. I have been informed by my Angolans colleagues that they would like to present their declaration or their summary of the morning session. So I think it will start in 5 minutes. So whoever wants to hang on can just follow online. Otherwise, yeah, we can close this meeting. And thank you all very much. And have a lovely evening. I'm passing on the word to Julio then. Thank you.
Hello. I don't know if you can hear me.
Thank you.
Let's go.
To bring more
I don't know. Como é que funciona?
Yes, those who can win it, it's fun to present the declaration.
Yes.
I don't know the
Selena, can you?
Father Julio wants to take the floor on that. So go ahead, everyone who still can stay and follow the declaration, please do so. Otherwise,
I don't know if you can follow from the mic here in the room. Ok. Eu penso que não conseguem ouvir. Vamos passar ao nosso secretariado a palavra. Enquanto isso, vamos trazer um computador que está com som lá fora para vir aqui. Mas como não temos expressão do tempo, vamos começar convidando a para vir apresentar. Não, muito. Daniel. And also the government sharing the flow that we invite you to join us and be very happy if you can still find out this. Our secretary will present the document on the floor, and I will also you can still follow. Thank you for your attention, and please come in with the money happy if you can still at this moment. Our secretary will present the document from the floor.
Nós tivemos uma longa sessão, partida em 2 momentos, de manhã e à tarde, e o que nós vamos fazer aqui, com a vossa compreensão, Então, o que nós vamos fazer A ideia nós assim. Nem outros. É simples que nós fazemos dos trabalhos Vão partilhar. Nós conseguimos usar mais específicos. Vou falar bem, vamos ver se agora não tem. Então, o que vai ser o que nós vamos aqui apresentar tem em vista dar um retorno tanto às pessoas que estiveram na sessão aqui embaixo, tanto às pessoas que estiveram na sessão no andar, das principais ideias que nós conseguimos ter. Eu tenho praticamente esse livro cheio de notas. Não é possível, como eu creio que vocês entendem, assim, de repente, nós conseguirmos vir aqui e podermos dizer que vos estamos a apresentar tanto um quanto uma declaração, quanto nós vamos trabalhar nisso durante a noite da manhã. Vocês serão apresentados ao documento que nós temos. O que nós pretendemos com isto é, por um lado, fazer aquilo que é sempre devido numa sessão coletiva, que é dar apoio às pessoas que não participaram, até para poder corrigir um ou outro aspecto e poder dar uma ou outra ideia, ou irem pensando em algo que depois amanhã vocês possam assistir, certo? Portanto, é essa a nossa intenção agora. Quando eu há bocado ouvi falar em declaração, fiquei um bocado assustado, nós não temos condição nenhuma de preparar uma declaração com o tempo que temos para poder ler, refletir e retirar aquilo que... Então, o que temos aqui é um pouco a reação instantânea que nós tivemos à medida que as sessões foram acontecendo e que fomos tomando e trocando algumas ideias entre nós. Tanto pela vossa colaboração e pela vossa compreensão, eu então iria pedir ao Luís para fazer uma apresentação daquilo que foi apresentado aqui, porque o grupo também fez essa validação. No nosso caso, aos CIPs, vamos apresentar pela primeira vez às pessoas que tiveram um grupo lá em cima, porque nós não tivemos a oportunidade de um grupo lá em cima de fazer esse tipo de validação. Okay? Relativamente às comunicações da tarde, nós tomamos nota, tanto quanto possível, e vamos procurar trazer as principais ideias de temas para comunicar. Os comunicados são sempre documentos simples, não são comunicado de imprensa, não é um documento muito longo. Mas certamente, depois com a organização, nós iremos trabalhar num tipo de uma ata ou um documento que reflita de uma maneira mais ampla aquilo que foi os resultados dos trabalhos das várias sessões. Estamos conscientes do que é que se vai passar aqui agora? Podemos avançar? Muito obrigada pela compreensão. Luís.
No da manhã, nós começamos com uma discussão bastante dos três tópicos principais, que devem enfrentar a instabilidade política e a resposta ao terrorismo, migração, gestão pacífica em África, liberdade de expressão e direito à informação. Nos oradores fizeram várias diversas em relação aos seus temas e, no final, né,
as nossas comunicações da organização. Ainda agora está aparecendo.
várias recomendações, dos debates que surgiram. A plenária deu algumas recomendações, que eu vou ler agora. Recomenda-se a criação de uma agenda comum das organizações da sociedade civil para que haja diálogo com as instituições a fim de discutir problemas relacionados ao espaço cívico. E ainda a ideia da capacitação dos membros das organizações da sociedade civil para que tenham em conta uma maior intervenção social. E há modelos de comunicação que sejam eficazes para reivindicar direitos da ideia de desenvolvimento social. O quarto deve-se procurar ter uma lei prescritiva, ou seja, um princípio em que os membros das sociedades tenham contato direto com os governantes, sem que haja a barreira das representatividades não representam. A quinta deve continuar a monitorar o atendimento que sejam possíveis entre os membros da sociedade ou a organização. Que se definam leis que não depender de lei. Ainda uma anotação geral, que é a ideia de ter intervenção que seja pan-africana e que possa facilitar que as organizações africanas trabalhem juntas sobre os seus problemas regionais. Não podemos permitir que os governantes sejam sempre os mesmos players nas questões eleitorais. Que há uma proposta de que haja instituições que lidam com a questão eleitoral que não sejam dependentes necessariamente das instituições governamentais e partidárias. A questão de mulheres nas zonas mais cômodas do país. Essa é a questão do gênero. Garantir o maior envolvimento das mulheres e está associada a essa questão do gênero, para que elas sejam ouvidas por fim, realizar para garantir a maior participação dos cidadãos.
O ritmo vai voltar a trabalhar nestas ideias gerais que nós vamos orientar a partir das próprias notas que vêm e depois juntar esses elementos. Agora, por favor.
Bem, em relação às questões que nós discutimos no período nacional, eram 4 temas. Primeiro, desenvolvimento de infraestruturas, justiça e proteção social. Os oradores foram o engenheiro Pacheco e o doutor Sérgio Desenvolvimento. Bom, fizemos apontamentos com base naquelas questões que eles mais focaram. O doutor Fernando Pacheco, a palavra, ele fez referência do paradigma de informação em Angola, que é para a do poder na cidade capital. Ele disse que, em relação a essa questão enquanto não houver descentralização administrativa que promova a inovação e a disponibilidade na solução de tarefas, ou seja, da possibilidade dos problemas, não vai ter uma essa questão que era mais focalizada. Exato. Enquanto começou com uma questão que é podem haver as estruturas física e a proteção social. E ao decorrer da questão ao mesmo tema, ele trouxe uma abordagem baseada na experiência das pesquisas na qual, ou seja, inclui essa seguinte questão. Ou seja, o desenvolvimento das infraestruturas no nosso contexto também tem esse fator de desigualdade social. No entanto, elas normalmente, quando são unidas ou construídas, não observam de maneira alguma os padrões internacionais ou regionais sobre o impacto ambiental. Essa é a questão que ele mais focalizou. Enquanto que o quadro, no segundo tema, a relação entre crescimento econômico e relações comerciais, que tivemos dois oradores que são os doutores Bonifácio Marranza e do Carlos Rosado. Eles falaram sobre a necessidade do comércio intracontinental. E o doutor Marranza foi mesmo enfático em ter dito o seguinte: por exemplo, há uma intenção da União Europeia em poder estabelecer um acordo comercial com os países do continente africano, e esta intenção é de há 20 anos, mas há um conjunto de barreiras que têm travado, não é? A efetivação completa deste acordo. E uma delas é efetivamente os blocos de interesses que existem. Temos o bloco que é comandado praticamente pelos Estados Unidos da América, outros pela China, outros pela Rússia. Enquanto essas barreiras não foram de maneira alguma discutidas, mas é preciso cobrar a necessidade de uma agenda africana nova que defenda os nossos interesses, sob a pena de podermos nos perder nessa mesclagem de interesses destes blocos e tentam suscitar, portanto, aquilo que são os interesses das nações africanas. Enquanto o Carlos Rosado trouxe uma abordagem também, e até apresentou gráficos, e eu vou aqui tentar a mais fora. Ele fez referência sobre o comércio intracontinental, por exemplo. O comércio intracontinental, em termos de porcentagem, a nível da Europa representa 67,165%. Só para terem uma ideia. O comércio intracontinental nos países da Ásia representa 54,223%. Enquanto que para a América representa 50 e alguma coisa. Enquanto que para o continente africano representa apenas 16,243. Para a Oceania, 4.850. Só para terem uma ideia que o comércio entre os continentes, entre os países do mesmo continente, o menos considerado a Oceania, o continente africano só representa 16%. Então, defende a questão da integração como fator de desenvolvimento da sociedade africana. Em relação à exploração dos recursos naturais e benefícios. O padre falando de uma referência sobre os trabalhos que temos feito a nível das regiões, particularmente a região leste, a região e a região norte. E quando falou sobre os benefícios dessas comunidades, a única coisa que ele disse foi um dos benefícios dessas comunidades da exploração de minerais é apenas a pobreza e a exclusão. Absolutamente Eles não consideraram mas fez caracterizou a situação em geral. E, para terminar, Filomeno. O Dr. Filomeno trouxe uma proposta no sentido de poder mitigar todas essas situações que têm atrasado de que maneira o país. Eu digo uma outra parte.
Este secretariado foi muito.
Não, assim, eu tenho isso. Estou a ver. Eu trago 5 propostas. E essa é tem um pouquinho de paciência agora.
Bem, como
Sim. Trouxe aqui algumas questões sobre o sucesso da nova governação. São sucessos de nova governação em África. Exemplos, por exemplo, do Botswana, do Ghana, Namíbia e Marrocos. Aquilo que ele chamou de contexto macroeconômico, ou seja, contexto macroeconômico de Angola em comparação com os demais países do continente africano, e que esses países que acabei de citar, eu disse mesmo que representam aquilo que é a boa vontade, ou seja, a vontade política de querer de resolução de problemas. Eu acho que a professora Atina vai poder acrescentar aquilo que eu, infelizmente,
com base neste
apontamento.
Bem, e depois temos a Delma.
Sim, a Delma trouxe até uma contribuição em relação ao que ela abordou, está relacionado com a profissionalização das mulheres e dos jovens versus o acesso ao emprego. Trouxe uma espécie de simplificação. Primeiro, como recomendação, campanhas e intervenções para a mudança de normas sociais. O que é isso? Programas de sensibilização que envolvam comunidades, líderes locais e a escola para reduzir estereótipos de gênero e valorizar carreiras técnicas entre os jovens. Reforçar formação técnica e formação teórica e prática. O que é isso? Expandir programas técnicos profissionais alinhando com os setores em crescimento. Envolver empresas no desenho e oferta de estágios com remuneração. Políticas ativas de emprego com foco em jovens e mulheres. Subsídios condicionados para a contratação, programas de incubação e vouchers de formação para a população ou populações vulneráveis. Medidas à conciliação, trabalho e família. Incentivos fiscais e regulamentos para creches empresariais e horários flexíveis que aumentem a disponibilidade feminina para trabalho remunerado. Formalização progressiva e proteção acalentada, que significa simplificação de registros para microempresas, regimes contributivos proporcionais e acessos a benefícios que tornem a formalização ativa. Melhorar a governança e monitorização. Criar indicadores nacionais desagradados por processo, idade e setor. Estabelecer metas temporárias. Redução do desemprego jovem em X% até 2027 e mecanismos de avaliação periódica. Para terminar, houve um interveniente nas intervenções que aconteceram na sala de um dos nossos ilustres colegas que disse o seguinte: o insucesso de África, ou seja, o insucesso de muitas sociedades africanas, e de forma muito particular a Angola, deve-se à ausência ou inexistência de uma visão de Estado.
Okay.
Como vocês veem, nós temos muito material onde buscar as informações para poder não só produzir um documento mais baixo, como esse documento mais baixo distribuir ou comunicar, que amanhã terá de ser apresentado à imprensa. Então, nós agradecemos a vossa paciência. Gostaríamos de saber se surgiu alguma ideia que vocês queiram compartilhar. Sim? Sim, pode vir aqui então, por favor. Pode. Ok.
Como no primeiro painel tocou-se muito sobre a democracia. Eu dei o meu contributo da lei do plebiscito.
Falou sim. Não.
Não, vou fechar tudo isso aí.
Otaviana, tem aqui uma pessoa. Não, mas falou sim. Falou.
Boa tarde. Sou João, representante da Associação de Jurídica da Eu queria dar uma ideia, para dar uma ideia. Em África, ou não, mas
ok, tudo bem. Precisamos ficar com a ideia de que, em princípio, o que nós estávamos a fazer era um retorno daquele grupo. Mas bem, vamos ter em conta que não esteve naquele grupo, mas quer dar uma solução.
Um gigante problema já está no nosso país, né? É a questão da produção. Se nós decidirmos apostar na produção para fabricar, é só nós vermos o que nós utilizamos diariamente. Onde é que a transação, onde é fabricada, o carro que nós conduzimos, o telefone que nós usamos, as coisas mínimas que nós utilizamos. É produzido de fora. Então, se nós apostamos na produção, quer dizer que nós vamos ter economia. Não temos economia porque nós nós somos consumidores. Nós não temos economia, nós somos consumidores. E neste caso temos riqueza. Nós não produzimos. Se nós produzirmos, os nossos problemas vão desaparecer. Porque quando um país produz, a economia ou vai ficar estável. Eu acho que esse ponto de vista deveria ter em conta.
Bem, esse ponto de vista, como vocês devem ter ouvido à tarde, foi falado várias vezes do lado da agroecologia, em termos de sistemas de produção e de consumo de alimentos. Mas hoje de manhã também, de alguma forma, também se abordou essa questão. Agora, eu queria só para que esclarecer uma coisa. Nós não produzimos riqueza, nós temos produzido vinhos. É uma coisa muito diferente. Então, se vocês nos permitirem, então, e se tiverem confiança, nós vamos trabalhar muito material que nós recebemos e pensamos amanhã por estar aqui com cara lavada para vos apresentar então o retorno desse trabalho. Mas é importante hoje dar satisfação, principalmente aos indivíduos que estiveram no grupo 2 e que não tiveram a oportunidade de fazer essa validação. É um exercício devido e eu fiz questão, apesar de já ter aqui um pouco mais, mas eu fiz questão de fazermos essa organização, acolheu e eu agradeço por terem acolhido essa sugestão. Muito obrigada.
Obrigada a nós, professora Altina e União simples. Para terminarmos com a sessão, vamos pedir ao doutor Guilherme Neves para a nota de encerramento.
Agora, por aqui,
Mais uma vez, obrigado a todas e todos. Penso que não perdemos o nosso tempo. Foi, sim, valioso. Tivemos aqui reflexões profundas, tivemos aqui conclusões e também saíram aqui recomendações importantes, umas tiradas a nós mesmos enquanto atores da sociedade civil. Eu penso que foi um encontro que também ajudou a revivar o nosso compromisso com a sociedade enquanto força. Também foi aqui dito que nós, a sociedade civil, também somos uma força importante e se nos calarmos, vamos permitir que aqueles que nos governam não cumpram com aquilo que é o nosso compromisso de bem-estar e garantir a dignidade da pessoa humana. As reflexões de vários autores de que ainda não caminham para o progresso. Temos deficiências no âmbito das infraestruturas, temos a deficiência do ponto de vista do desenvolvimento, mas também da falta de igualdade de oportunidades entre a Europa e a África. Isso são levantados aqui exemplos concretos de produtos que se usam na Europa, que já são produtos que sejam usados na Europa, mas que em África ainda se aplica. Quer dizer que o direito à vida na Europa tem uma maior obrigação na África. Que é uma recomendação muito forte para a União Europeia. Precisamos levar essa mensagem de que a vida na Europa é a mesma em África. O ser humano na Europa é o mesmo ser humano em África. Também essa recomendação de desigualdade, do ponto de vista da exploração de recursos minerais, recursos naturais, certamente as políticas dentro da relação bilateral entre os blocos europeus e África, muitas vezes quem sai mais a ganhar é a Europa, porque ela tem a tecnologia, tem a sabedoria, e muitas vezes os nossos líderes africanos não conseguem se impor. Aqui também saiu essa recomendação muito importante, que nós precisamos não só ter líderes fortes, mas precisamos também ter instituições fortes. E para que isso aconteça, o nosso papel enquanto sociedade civil deve ser permanente. Vou também pedir uma recomendação para nós, é que não podemos ser cansados. Temos que continuar. Até desde há 20 anos que estamos a tocar no assunto. Sim, o aluno existe mais de 20 anos. Os problemas não param. O importante é continuar a tocar e encontrar soluções. Então, a recomendação é que nós também somos parte dos problemas, mas também parte das soluções. Significa dizer que não devemos estar a isso também, temos que continuar a denunciar as más práticas de governação. Foi também uma das conclusões aqui nessas intervenções que os dois grandes problemas têm a ver com as más precisamos melhorar. E quem vai melhorar? Nós temos que exigir quem nós elegemos aqueles que primeiramente estão aí para gerir o nosso viral. São os nossos irmãos, nossos filhos, nossos primos, enfim, comunicamos com eles, rezamos com eles, estudamos com eles nas faculdades. Então temos que conscientizar. Essa foi a primeira coisa. Primeiro, conscientizar quem está no poder e nós também que estamos aqui, porque precisamos olhar aquilo que é o bom para todos. E outra recomendação é que sempre as políticas públicas têm que ter em conta os grupos minoritarios, ou seja, os grupos mais vulneráveis. E aqui falou-se muito da mulher. Okay? É preciso enquadrar sempre a mulher em todos os processos de poder. E falou-se muito aqui das mulheres que vivem em zonas rurais, que muitas vezes nem sequer são tidas nem achadas. Então, as políticas de relação entre a União Europeia e a União Africana devem olhar nas direções mais concretas. As decisões não podem estar só lá entre eles, mas as decisões têm que refletir na melhoria da condição dos povos europeus como africanos. Eu acho que foi um dia. Certamente nós também estamos aqui, como disse o padre, aquele que denuncia, deve renunciar. Tudo aquilo que nós denunciamos aqui, para nós também vai ser denunciar, significa que temos que caminhar melhor que devíamos. Aquilo que nós fazíamos, a partir de hoje, assumimos, ou voltamos a assumir coisas claras. Devo agradecer e dizer que até o momento. E os colegas temos um outro lanche. Temos que garantir o direito à alimentação. E aí a alimentação com qualidade não deve deixar.
Eu queria